Welcome, everyone. Good to see you. And all to our friends on 1960, extend a welcome to you as well. Couple of quick things. You'll notice today that in the role of Robert Davis is Jason Halvai. Robert's out today, so Jason was kind enough to step in and will be representing the cabinet side. Also, I've had a couple of questions from folks on some other general things, and I've got them, and I'll hold them until we get to the end. We have no new residents to introduce this month, although there are going to be several, I'm told, next month in May that are coming in this month, a little bit later in the month. Is that your understanding? Okay. So I'm semi right on that. So let's dive right into the committee reports. First is CIC. Chair is Connie Sonnenberg.
Good afternoon, everyone. Bob Steele, who has been the chair of the Communication Information Committee, resigned from the committee on March 1st. He's put in hundreds of hours, maybe thousands. And his time now will be spent doing all the other things that he has of interest, lots of things. The CIC will forever benefit from the time, effort, and knowledge that Bob provided. So, Resident Council asked me to step in as the CIC chair at this time, and it's always a pleasure to serve this community. The Communication Information Committee was officially adopted as a standing committee for the Resident Council in 2020. However, a small number of us began assisting management with the new Touchtown, now Uniguest, website in 2017, putting in hours of time by helping Renee Bracamonte provide tutorials, placing emails, bio information, as well as helping identify the many ways the website could adequately serve this community. For those newer residents here, it's good for you to know that there's a tremendous amount of information through the website, and it will provide much more as the need rises. It's always been known as our source. The number of the residents using the website as their source is through management nearly 300. Resident Council has been provided over 200 for their distribution list. And if you wish Resident Council emails to be sent to you, please contact our committee member, Russ Miller. So what is the mission now for CIC? Well, we will continue to work on the open-ended tasks, as well as assist the Resident Council on their email system. And we will work with Renee, always benefiting from his assistance in the areas of communication and information. We're a small committee, but we're somewhat computer savvy. And along with Renee, we can help answer and address resident questions and concerns regarding our communication here at B. Our members are currently Russ Miller, Lynn Breyer, Nancy Flanagan, and Robbie Urban. So please know that we are here to assist you. Respectfully submitted, Connie Sonnenberg. You're welcome.
Appreciate it. Next, we have dining, Liesl Nolan.
Bonnie Short. Good afternoon. The Dining Committee met on April 2nd, and our notes are available in the library and online. Greg announced that we had 5 block parties in April. Passover dinner will be tomorrow night, and the foundation dinner will be held this Friday and Saturday. Please refer to Greg's email for dining restrictions and availability for these 2 days. Cinco de Mayo Mix and Mingle will be held on May 4th and the Mother's Day brunch on May 12th. You can find the new comment card box on the bar counter. Also, feel free to leave cards on the tables or hand delivered to a hostess. Chef Ray attended our meeting and indicated that it takes time to get a new menu up and running. He has to cost out the items, test them, and train the staff before he will let anything come out of the kitchen to us. He is working on more Italian dishes, and as you have seen, more vegetarian items have been added. Chef will add weekly hot and cold entrees to the prickly pear at lunch. And right now, he has added a hoagie to the always available lunch menu. He has also added to the left side of the menu a new entree, and there is a steak sandwich in the Alpenglow for lunch. He is also working on elevating the brunch menu. This seems to be something the residents really want. Per management, there is no plan to loosen the dress code at lunch. Each month, we are featuring a member of the dining or culinary team to tell us something about themselves and to showcase their jobs here at V. Marcella Felix was our guest this month, and believe me, Marcella does much more than what we see. So please be sure and thank her. Our guest for May 7th will be Chef Karen, the pastry chef. Bon appetit, and as always, be kind and be grateful for what we have. Respectfully submitted, Liesl Knoll.
Thank you. The man with the money, Bob Smith.
Might be better said the man looking for the money. Finance Committee had its monthly meeting last Thursday. We did not have a meeting in March, so we caught up from there. One look back thing that we've got in February, I told you about our ongoing efforts. How's that? Okay. I didn't adjust it. In February, I told you about our ongoing efforts to have the ownership pay a portion of the then 2.3 cost of the dining renovation. Unfortunately, we failed. They've now confirmed that there will be no payment from ownership and it'll all be us. And actually, since that time, there was 80-something thousand more came in. It's now up over 2.4 million, but that's behind us. We'll move on. Okay. Okay. We'll do it that way. Bottom line is corporate ownership declined to take any payment on the dining venue renovation. It's since gone up $86,000 more to a total of 2.4 million. And as we were afraid of in February, that's all on us now. So that's pretty much behind us. We'll move on, swallow hard and see what we can do. One positive thing I might say about that is, though, since we paid for the thing, maybe we could have a little bit of influence on how the dress code is at lunch as the weather gets hotter. Something to think about. I think you've heard that before. Beyond that is a little bit better flavor. Things are looking fairly good going forward right now. Occupancy numbers are still a little low, but 5 of those who are not moved in yet or in the process of it have been paying their monthly fees ever since the December 31st. So that's money we're getting while they're developing, getting the units ready. There's 8 units currently in the turn process. There's also a proposal in from a second contractor that's been received and it's under review. If that proposal should be accepted, it'll speed up term times, speed up the move-ins, and speed up the monthly fees. That's something we've been hoping for. I hope it's a quality proposal so that we'll have something there. Overall, revenue is trending somewhat behind budget, partially because the care center private pays aren't quite keeping up with last year. It's also part of that is because there's more independent living residents moving into the care center right now that are holding that back. Even though, fortunately, even though we're a little bit low on revenue, expense control is making up for that. So they were still somewhat ahead of budget and doing pretty good. Even though the expenses are doing good, there's two areas still that are concerned. Liesl talked a bit about one in culinary. Chef Ray's still working on cleaning up the problem he inherited over there. It's getting better. It's improving. They say he's got the purchasing now under control. He's getting a temporary labor under control. And in April and May, we really start to see some good progress there. Dining room is also a drag on the budget right now. Michelle assured us that in the next few months towards summer, she sees that getting better. The overall budget is in balance and stable at this point for the year. And we expect it to keep getting better, and that's a good thing. Under capital programs, we've still got a higher deficit there than we'd like, but there's a lot of programs going on, a lot of things that need to be done around here, as everybody knows. The quarter upgrade is scheduled to begin. It's in the design phase. They're scheduled to get busy back on it in the beginning of the third quarter, and then it'll run straight on through till it gets finished. Somewhat different from my February report, we're seeing a stable and improving budget, and it's looking better as we go forward. Thank you.
And from the library, Carol Steele.
Good afternoon, everybody. As I know it's a common phrase these days, but it does take a village to run our community. And I have, especially our little library, I've got fabulous volunteers that work every Thursday. We're not all in there each week, but we rotate and deal with lots and lots of great books that come in and get returned, et cetera. I'd like to thank Joe and Billy and our V drivers for assisting us whenever we need anything from labels to boxes to whatever. When we get books, donated books that we can't use, then we give them to, I let Joe know, she has our drivers, one of our drivers pick them up, and they're taken up to the Pinnacle Animal Rescue Boutique, which is always thrilled to get our books because they're very happy to sell them, make some money for our local pets. I'd like to thank Renee, particularly. Joan White had to retire for years, made beautiful bouquets seasonally that we had on the table in the library, and she retired from her job. And so I beseeched Renee, could we do something? And he made arrangements with the florist that provides the pretty beautiful flowers in the foyer to provide a seasonal arrangement in the library. So I hope you've noticed it and how really classy they are. They're really nice because people in the library feel like it's really a showcase when you or guests or visitors come to V. That's one thing that you kind of notice is that nice alcove of books. We have a couple of fun bookshelves. I'll briefly mention our book club bookshelves, aptly named. We put copies of our book club books in there, which people will read and then donate. So if you come to book club and haven't read a book, you might look in there, and quite often it is available. I do have a request from some of my volunteers. I know people are trying to be helpful, but when you bring books to the library, please put them in the book drop, which is around the corner in the little alcove there, because we will be happy to shelve them for you in the right place. We've got some other shelves that are dedicated to local authors, some are residents, some people who've spoken here, as well as a shelf for volunteer picks, some of our favorites, and newly donated books. So when something comes in we haven't had before, we put it there. So those of you who are looking for, I've read everything in here, what's new? Then that's where you can look. If you visit the community website, under resident council and committees, under the Five Hands logo, if you click on the collapse all button at the top, then it squishes all of the listings together, and there are lots of them there. Library is down toward the bottom. We are not last, sorry, programming, but we're not least. We're listed alphabetically. And under our title, you'll find our mission statement and goals, as well as 8 frequently asked questions. So if you think, I don't want to call anybody or whatever, I wonder what they do, in this case, look there first, because that may very well be an answer to your question, although I'm always available and happy to talk to anybody who has any questions about our services. And finally, some real groaners to lighten your day. Why are libraries the tallest buildings in the world? Because they have so many stories. Why did the cardiologist recommend that his patients go to the library? He heard they're good for circulation. Why did Dracula go to the library? He wanted to sink his teeth into a good book. And last, why can't you go to the world's biggest library? Because it's always overbooked. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol. So on this major projects listing on your agenda, the point of those is not to do extensive reports today. The point is to have them in front of you so that we make sure as the year goes on, we keep those first and foremost. The phases 2 and 3 of the lodge refresh, I expect our executive director is going to chat about it, and he'll have a lot more to say at a town hall meeting he's scheduling in May, and you'll hear more about that. The bylaws update, you all got a really short copy of the bylaws and a summary of the process we've been following. The important thing there, we're not going to talk about that today. We've had feedback from a couple of residents so far, and that's great. Don't be shy. If you want to share comments, please do. We will have 2 information sessions, as you've already heard, but I want to underscore it. May 2nd and May 10th in this room, both of those at 2 p.m. And it will also be on 1960. We will have an opportunity for any resident who wishes to understand better what's behind some of these things or ask questions about them. You'll have that opportunity on those 2 dates. So hope you can make those meetings or at least watch them on 1960. And if nobody shows up, we'll know we're okay, and let's just get on with it. We'll see. We'll see. I hope we're not taking up too much time in these rooms. The Employee Appreciation Fund, obviously a very important aspect of all of our lives here at V. Steve Brown will be making an update report on that in May at our meeting, and has some interesting new innovations to share with you then. And while the foundation scholarship campaign really doesn't happen until the fall, the leadership dinners are this weekend on Friday and Saturday. Tremendous amount of work goes into all that from a wonderful committee, both on the foundation board and the scholarship committee. And who's the chair of the scholarship committee? Carolyn Holden. Yeah, that's right. I forgot. So we're going to keep these things on the agenda simply to remind us that we want to deal with them. There will be opportunities to do so as we get a little bit closer on the calendar in detail. And with that, Mr. Gilbert, you're up.
All right. Just quick reports here. As Mr. Holden said, I will have a town hall next month. I don't have the date yet, but I should be announcing this fairly soon. And for those who are newer at the community, I spend about an hour each quarter to report on the events of the community. So we talk about the finances a little bit. We take a look at some of the projects that we have in the community, those that we call capital projects. For instance, we're just wrapping up the Port Cochere project. So thank you for your patience. We know there was some dust there, and it was a little bit unsightly for a few weeks, but the wood structure at the Port Cochere has had its lifetime, so we had to replace all this, and they just reopened the so it would be the northeast parking structure on the side of the community, the entrance. So we're done with this. So we'll talk a little bit about some of these issues. As part of that town hall, I'm excited to also present more details on what we're going to call phase 2 of the community general remodel. As you recall, last year, it was so fun, not painful at all to have the dining rooms closed for 6 months. And so this year, phase 2 will be corridor work, and we really want to focus on that. And our goal is to start that project and try to wrap it up before the holiday end of year celebrations that, so hopefully by Thanksgiving. Not sure that we can do it, but we're going to try to get this done. Now, the beauty of the phase 2 corridor project is that the impact on each resident is much less than that of the dining rooms, because every resident was impacted for about 6 months with the closure of the dining rooms. Now, the corridors, the beautiful thing is that it's not going to take them 3 months in front of your apartment. They're going to be there for a few days, and then they're going to move along, right? So we don't have a schedule yet of the logistics, but we're working on that. So phase 2 is going to have 5 mini phases, right? And I have them here. Sorry for pulling out the phone here, but I can read them to you. So phase 2A will be the acoustic ceiling tiles and the can lights. 2B will be the drywall ceiling, can lights and decorative lights. We need some time to do some ordering here on the decorative lights. Phase 2C is the vertical surfaces, walls, doors, and things of the sort. And so we will remove the existing art as well, right? So we can't paint over all of that. That'll have to be removed. Also, we've had a chat about doorbells. I should ask here who has the most doorbells, because we know some have up to 4 or 5. Goodness. So we're going to streamline the doorbell situation. The doorbell plaques, and we're going to install the sconces and add some new art. Now, there were some questions. Yannick, are you getting rid of all of this art? Some of it seems good. And so we've done a study in the past year or so, and maybe more, of the current art, and we're going to be able to keep some. And if I recall, we had an official meeting last week. If I recall, it was 60 or 70% of the art. If I recall, this is a ballpark number that we're going to be able to keep and reutilize, meaning we feel like it's got another good 10 years of life, and it can be reused in the community. Now, the art will be relocated, that art that we're keeping. So if you had the picture of a cactus near your apartment, that will disappear, but you may see it on another wing, on another floor in the future. So it will look new to everybody. And of course, we will replenish the art that we're going to have to either donate or discard with new one. And then phase 2D, that's the install of the carpet and the painting of the baseboards. And 2E will be the FF&E, what we call FF&E, which is the furniture, the fixtures, and the equipment. So there's a good chance we start during the summer with like a phase 2A, where there's going to be work done in the corridors, but it's going to have a feeling like, oh, what's going on? It doesn't feel real because they're just doing preliminary work. But during the third quarter, this is when we're going to see the old carpet removed and so on. So all this to say, in my May town hall, I'll be glad to do about 15, 20-minute presentation about the specifics of how things will look. So we are finished. We're done with the development of the final design. We had 2 meetings last week. So we had the folks from our corporate office, the designers, Their whole team was here, and also the folks from RSB, which is RSB is a contract design firm located in Tempe. And so they work hand in hand. We've hired them so that we get a specialist on the Southwest, on the designs that make sense here in Arizona, as the folks from our corporate office have an idea, but they needed that help. So the meetings were well received. So one meeting was with senior management. I had seen some of those elements in the past, but my cabinet team had not. So it was well received. The feeling was that these concepts and images and new carpets and new furnitures and artwork and fabrics will do a good job at tying up what we had set out to do in a desert breeze, if you'll recall, theme. So, and then the following day, I think that was on Tuesday, we had a meeting with some residents who participated somewhat actively in conversations about phase 2. And so we had a group meeting with those residents as well, and RSP did the same presentation that was done with the cabinet. And so just to say there's no major objections, of course. It's never our expectation that everybody will be 100%. In a large community like this, you may like most of it, but there might be something where like, well, I don't really care for this, but the rest is pretty good. So that's the feeling we had. And so we're going to put the motions here a little bit more. We want to be active into ordering and getting this going. So that will be at my town hall, which will be in the month of May, should be around mid-May. I know that there's a lot of committee meetings, and so I'm trying to not have 2 large meetings a day after another, even though that could happen at some point. So other than that, I think I did send a letter that we have once again rotation in our sales department, unfortunately. And so we are looking for a new director of sales. This search, there are still many candidates that did well during the last round, which some of them have reapplied and may have still some interest. So a lot of interest, as opposed to last time where it was much more quiet and difficult to get with the sourcing part and the recruiting. So so we should have some news about that in the next few weeks. And just in general, life of the community has been pretty good in terms of the sales department. We just have, I think we have 3 or 4 units currently with low interest. And so we're working on those units. And the rest of the inventory is either sold or with strong interest. And that means somebody is about to give a 10% deposit, or they have given a 10% deposit, or they're just waiting to be either financially approved or that the healthcare side of their application is also approved. So, so good occupancy going into the summer months here. And I'm sure, I think everybody is a more tenured Arizonan than I am. This is going to be my 3rd summer here, and stay hydrated. I think I'm seeing here 95 degrees. So I think it's at the doorstep again. I look at the 10-day forecast, and next week, interestingly, it's going to be cool again, like 60s and 70s. So, but I think it's knocking at the door. So stay hydrated. Every year, every summer that I've been here, unfortunately, we'll have a resident who has to go out because of dehydration. So it can really hit anyone. And they say hydration is continual. So I'm not drinking during this hour, and I'm kind of feeling it. So as soon as we're done, I'm gonna go drink some water. So I'm going to turn the time over to Jason, who will just give a quick informal report about his department's activities currently, and then we'll gladly take some questions.
Right. I am not Robert Davis, but I will do my best to match his energy level. I don't know that I can get there, but I do know you expect a bit of bravado. I will do my best. But I just thought coming in informally, as Yannick mentioned, first I would start by giving everybody just a little bit of a brief overview on how we work or how my position works in tandem with the Care Center and really working closely with Melanie and her team. I think for the most part, everybody has a pretty good idea of my role here at Viet Greyhawk. And I think one of the things that would help just elaborating on what exactly we do from a healthcare perspective. And the director of resident services sits as the chair of what we call the Resident Evaluation Committee. And that is a committee that's made up of about 8 to 10 individuals from V staff that consists of care center personnel, myself, Jen Prickett, and various disciplines. And really what we're doing, we're the committee and that looks at the medical approval when individuals come in. And I assume this is not breaking news because most of you have been medically approved by us. You probably had a meeting with myself or Jen if you were here in the past 4 years, or one of my predecessors. As I look around, obviously I can see some faces here of people that I personally interviewed and people that predated me. And so that process, whenever we gather that information, that is brought to that resident evaluation committee. We make a determination looking at the healthcare if we are all on board with proceeding with approval on that individual moving into the program. But another key component of this program is providing support as well. So many of my conversations may happen behind closed doors with all of you or with family members. And what we're really looking at is, are there ways that we can provide support, that we can provide resources to you? Some of those conversations may be when and if it is time to transition to the care center. And that's where we involve Melanie's team and have conversations with the RNs, with the social work background, with our staff on site here, looking at our own evaluation. And maybe sometimes that conversation is that individual is not yet ready, but are there things we can do in the short term in the interim to provide a little bit of a boost? Be that PDAs? Are there things that I can do through the wellness center with Jennifer Prickett from a medical perspective to help that person based on what their current needs are? And so a lot of this dialogue is happening on an ongoing basis, a daily basis, really. And what we're looking at is what does that committee feel like? Are we missing the boat just from an individual perspective on something that's available to that person? Or is it something that we see all the time and we feel like, well, we can offer this to that individual to either extend their time in independent living, just give them the best quality of life, or make the determination that the best support really is necessary to be in the care center. And really want to stress in that those types of conversations really have been going on for weeks, even months at a time before we really get to that point, because the idea really is to be on board and collaborative with that person. And so you're always welcome to reach out to me if you have any questions, you have any thoughts, you have any concerns. I will always have those conversations with you one-on-one. If it's something that needs to be brought to the committee, something that I'm happy to do for you as well. And so that's just a little bit of a brief background there. I know you're all eager to stay here longer with me, but I will just give you another, on that note, I will also just give a reminder through the wellness clinic, we do have the COVID clinic this Friday. And so we do have quite a few people signed up for that. That is in collaboration with CVS. It is the same group that did this for us the last time. They're offering the Moderna booster. We are pulling the book tomorrow at Wednesday at 5 p.m. And the reason that we're doing that is because CVS needs an accurate count on the numbers. And so that is the cutoff. And so if you call us after that, we'll do our best to get you in, but there's no guarantee. And because we're giving CVS time to get the number of doses they need, to get the number of staff they need, to get in and prepare for them. So we're really doing this in conjunction with them to make sure we're not dropping any surprises on them. So we're happy to continue to hold these clinics. We're happy to offer these services for you. We just want to make sure that we're being respectful of CVS's time and their pharmacists as well. I think that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, so we have ample time for Q and A, for Jason, for Renee. Who's saying no, don't know. For Yannick, any of the committee chairs that you heard from today, resident council, whatever your pleasure. So because we do have 1960 participating, we ask that you would please wait to have a microphone brought to you by Renee, but please raise your hand if you have a question. Oh, surprise, surprise.
This is a general question. When you say phase two is the hallways, are you including the lobby and the mailroom and the library in that phase two? You didn't speak to that.
Great question. Can you hear me okay? No. So that will be phase three. We will have a phase three. So here's the reality. When we engaged or employed this RSP firm, it was more economical to get all of the design done. So we have every single room with a final design. The library, for instance, we presented that design last week, or the conference room or the information center, the foyer on the main floor, which seemed to be wanting to be renamed the living room. So, but also the lobby. And so all of these secondary spaces to the corridors are designed, but we're not going to have neither the time nor the budget this year to get everything done. So we're going to call it phase two corridors, and we have 5 sub phases in these. And the goal is to get this done this year. We have budgeted $2 million for this project for the corridors, and it was sort of a bucket holder. It's hard to tell yet what the final cost will be, but that's a fair approximate of the monies that will be expended. And I hope I'm not answering too far your question. I'm just trying to be helpful. That money comes from what we call the capital reserve. All right. Exactly. It's called the capital item replacement reserve, also called CIRR. And so we have funds that are allocated for this, and we are tapping from that money. So this does, even though it is funded by monthly fees, ultimately it's only a portion, obviously, of the monthly fees that fund the some of these capital projects. So this year, corridors, we hope to start as early as we can. We hope to be done by Thanksgiving. We can't promise yet. I will get some schedules here in the next few weeks, and I will present those as I have them. Thank you. Good question.
I guess this is for Yannick. Elevator 5, do we have a repair schedule? And second part, do we have a replacement schedule?
Thank you. I know that this elevator has caused a lot of pain. I don't have a final date, but as soon as we have it, this is a parts issue. We will publish that as soon as we know it. It's sort of the same thing with the fire doors here. I'm sure that this is unsightly. We get it. This door has actually been taken off site. It's received repairs over the weekend. We hope to have it back. Elevators 1 and 2, we should have a date for this imminently. Once again, those will be rebuilt entirely. One might say, well, why aren't you rebuilding 5 instead? It's just too late in the process. Some of these materials are built to spec, so they would only work on elevators 1 and 2. But a lot of the parts, nonetheless, will be able to reuse them. As soon as I have a date on elevator 5, I will send it to all the residents, at least those in those wings that are affected. Thank you. Sorry for the delays. Just waiting on the parts.
Yeah, during, excuse me, during Bob Smith's talk, he made an observation, and I'll try and report exactly. Along the way in his talk, Bob mentioned that there were 5 folks coming in who had already started paying rent ahead of their actual coming in. And this just resonated with me. I have no idea. This happened to us 4 years ago. Fair enough. We were not supposed to come in until the end of March. And sales director at the time said, would we be okay to start paying rent as of January 1, 3 months rent, even though we weren't here? And she would take off 3 months rent, round numbers, 20 grand, and she would take $20,000 off the entry fee. No skin off my nose, fine. I've always wondered which budgets get affected by rent in January, February, March, and as a quid pro quo, will reduce the entry fee. I have a second question behind that.
Is this the question for me?
Bob, anybody? I don't know.
Anybody?
Yeah.
I don't want to answer it. I'm teasing. So there are some special circumstances, especially at the end of the year, where the company, and this is the ownership of the company, will increase the entrance fee, right? So this happens almost every year, and it moves along with real estate, right? And so at the end of the year, prospects are being told, hey, we could move you in, let's say February, but you'd be paying the higher entrance fees. And those fees they can be pretty big, right? It can be around $1 million. And so if we raise it by, let's say 5%, it's a significant amount of money. So what the residents, the prospects will choose to do is to actually sign the contract at the end of December, because then they get the previous year's entrance fees, and they would rather pay 2 months rent or monthly fees than paying the extra 5%. It just is much better economically. So some of the references here that were made by Mr. Smith are some of those circumstances. There are other circumstances sometimes as well where a resident or a prospect says, hey, I love the apartment, but I want to do more. You know, I want to do this and that. And so they're willing to pay for that. And also because of the delays, we're going to commence them even though they're not quite ready to move in. That's according to our standard schedule, so to speak. So that's another situation where that might happen. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I get it.
You get it, okay.
The second part, though.
Yeah.
Our circumstance was straight 20 grand trade. 3 months rent we paid, and 20 grand came off our entry fee. The catch, and it's probably not very often, if you decide to upgrade, we were looking at Nandina up to a casita. And in fact, a year later, it became available. We were still interested. And there is a difference in price between what you paid up front to start with and the current price or where you're moving to. Suddenly, we lost 20 grand because the price that we came in at was 20 grand less than the original stated, but we paid for that in rent.
Right.
And it was suddenly, the price increase went up because we got simply, you paid a lower entry.
Yep.
The quid pro quo was never applied. So we didn't do it.
Oh, I see. Yeah, so any upgrades usually mean more expense, more money, larger units.
I have a question for Jason.
Thank you.
COVID related. What's driving the booster this time? Who or what medical situation? Some of us have had, well, I know we've had 7 COVID related shots. What's different?
Do you mean as far as why we scheduled it or what the recommendation is?
Yes, why?
Why? So we just stay in touch with the CDC's recommendations, and really they're stating this booster is no different than the last booster that was received. And so our aim is not to tell you you should or should not get it. Our aim is to have it available for those individuals who do want to receive it. Now, if you do, CDC does recommend for individuals that are 65 and older that last received the booster 4 to 6 months ago that you receive it again. But I'm not going to say you should or shouldn't, because that's a discussion that each person should have with their primary provider. The goal here is just to have it easily accessible for those individuals who have difficulty going off site for any reason. If there's any specific questions that you have medically, certainly reaching out to Jen in the Wellness Center is an option, or really best practices to talk to your doctor, see if they recommend you receive it or not receive it. But really, for us, it's more of an accessibility issue for the community here.
Thank you.
Just to add to that, one of the considerations apparently is I had COVID a couple of months ago, and I talked to a pharmacist, and she said, for heaven's sakes, don't get a vaccination because you have a lot of antibodies floating around in your system anyway. So wait till next fall, and they probably will have some improvements by then. So I don't know if all doctors would agree with that, but that was given to me.
Yep. Yeah. And that has been a pretty consistent recommendation that if somebody has recently been diagnosed with COVID, they do recommend you hold off on the booster because you are carrying
Get it
natural
again.
antibodies from having fought off the infection. But again, and that's where we would defer to that primary physician, whether or not that individual should. At times, someone may receive a recommendation that says, hey, wait until next fall, and that's reasonable.
A question for Yannick. My name's Bob Wolf, new resident. With everything that's going on the news and all of the people that are camping in the streets and all, is there any initial thought toward putting up some security and gates and that sort of thing before we have an incident with a whole lot of campers on the campus here?
Wow, I didn't think of that one. But I do I read the news and I know that there's a lot of chatter and the Supreme Court is reviewing a case currently. And so we do feel like the security that we have, first of all, we're fairly well enclosed as a community. The majority of the perimeter, you'd have to hop a fence, or we do have a few entrances that are not gated, so to speak. There are no plans to do this because we're not foreseeing this problem. We have 2 security entities that are patrolling the grounds 24/7. So there's obviously our own security service, which is 24/7. We either have, during the nighttime, we have one dedicated security person. And during the day shifts, sometimes we have 2 of them, or maybe even 3 at times. And also we have the greater Grayhawk neighborhood community that has, so those you will see, they're in vehicles, they're well identified, and sometimes they have the little yellow light as an identifier. So they're here at the several times a week, probably several times a day, actually, just patrolling. And it doesn't mean that we're not going to use those services. We've had some issues. They were not with homelessness related. We have more issues with teenage kids who are trying to get a free ride out of the golf carts. And we've had some fun chasing them, but no plan now. Those would be, at this stage, probably, look, gates maybe provide a feeling of safety, true, but they're also less home-like. So at this stage, there's no need for that. In future years, I hope we don't have to go there, but if we do, we'll take a look at the perimeter some more.
Last call on questions. Okay, a couple of final quick announcements. Thank you both for coming today. Appreciate it. Because of the Memorial Day holiday, which is Monday, May 27th, we won't do this meeting, the open meeting on the 27th. It'll be the 29th, which is a Wednesday. So we'll break it up a little bit. Variety, you know, it's all good. And also want to extend wishes for a happy Passover to all of you who practice the Jewish faith and wish you well. Other than that, we're complete. Thank you for watching on 1960. Thank you for all of you sharing your time with us. We stand adjourned.